Eye on South Asia is brought to you by Wells Fargo. Wells Fargo, together we'll go far.
Hi, welcome to Eye on South Asia. I'm Sunil Hali. On this show, we bring the latest news, views, and happenings in the South Asian community in North America to you every week.
And I'm Sanjeev Pandya.
So, Sanjeev, I think we had a fabulous last 3 weeks after Sandy.
Right.
And during this stormy season, we had, of course, the new president.
Right.
And despite everything else, the elections took place phenomenally well for, I think, Mr. Obama, who has come in as the second time president, first black American to be one. What is very important is that he has a clear agenda for Southeast Asia, South Asia, especially
Which actually he has since 2009.
Right. And even in the last term, he had lots of appointments from the South Asian community, and I continue to say South Asian, but essentially his focus has been Indians in America.
Correct.
And in the last term, he appointed quite a few people. And if you really go back to the history, Ronald Reagan was, I think, the first guy who appointed first Indian to a position. And then I think in 1991, the second position, it was on and off. You had a person here and a person there. But I think Obama had a clear agenda even in the last term, as you said. He had several appointments, Chief Technology Officer, Chief Information Officer, Ms. Bansal, Raj Shah. Right now, I don't think he has made many announcements, but there are guesses that he will be appointing almost as many as 50 people, if not more.
That is what the estimate is right now. And as you said, that he has not made any announcement, but there are several candidates, I think, waiting in the line, and the announcements will follow soon. What earlier you said that Obama is re-elected, and then there was a Sandy storm affecting mainly tri-state area, but I think eventually affected entire USA. And Obama administration was also, I think, doing whatever they could to help out the victims of the Sandy hurricane. Now, coming back to this point, South Asians in the USA, which I think accounts for maybe about 1% of total population. But stakes are high. There's a lot of optimism in the South Asian community about more South Asians will be part of Obama administration, and some as high as a remarkably key post in Obama administration.
Honestly, it is not to do with the percent, as a percent what we as Indians form part of the overall population. It is his agenda.
Right.
India remains, as we'll cover through the remaining stories as we go forward, India remains the nerve center for the ways that world is looking to reboost the global economy. The reason is very simple, that India has a 1.3 billion people consumer market. Of course, China has a little larger number, but they're a very closed society. They're not very easy to go and tap on.
Correct.
And as I said, after Joy Cherian as Equal Employment Opportunities Commission under Ronald Reagan, and then Sambhu Banik for the Bethesda psychologist who was appointed in 1990, in the last term, if you really look at the list goes on and on, you had Raj Shah appointed as a US aide, which is, I think, the highest ranking position
so far
ever.
Yes.
So far, you are so right. And then you have Vinay Thumalpalli, you think about it, an Indian in America being appointed by US as an ambassador to Belize. This is history, first time. Then you had Vikram Singh in the capacity of Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense for South and Southeast Asia. Then you have Preet Bharara, the glamour man from New York.
Right.
You have Subra Suresh. You have Ramesh Wadhwani appointment to the Board of Trustees for John F. Kennedy Center of Performing Arts. You have Vivek Kundra, as I told you earlier, and we discussed about the Chief Information Officer. I think he has moved out to look for the different position as possibly Lieutenant Governor in Virginia. Right. You have Ro Khanna, you have Suresh Kumar and his son Aditya Kumar, you have Richard Verma. The list goes on and on and on. And I think from what I heard very recently, at least few names have been tossed, and I think some of them have been confirmed, including Vishakha Desai. Vishakha has been appointed to the board, which is a key administrative position, at the Museum and Library Services Board, at the National Museum and Library Services Board in Washington, D.C. Vishaka has had a great career, you know. She has been recently, she stepped down from the president of Asia Society,
Right.
which is, I think, the highest cultural institution
And
of
she's
Asia.
also been a visiting professor at various universities.
Absolutely.
And she's very well experienced and very knowledgeable in this field. And I think Obama has made a right choice by appointing Vishaka Desai, for the National Museum and the Library Services Board.
And I believe that he has been consulting some other top Indian Americans, which includes Indira Nui and Neera Tandon. And Indira Nui does not need any recognition because she is the corporate officer from Indian community and who heads PepsiCo.
That actually made a headline news in the U.S. when Obama, actually his administration announced that Obama will be meeting Indra Nui, of Pepsi, and that actually made a headline news because the world really wanted to know what Indra Nui would suggest to Obama in terms of suggesting how economy can be better and the employment and everything else. But they have not released information post Obama and Indra Nui meeting, and it was not a one-on-one meeting with Indra Nui. There were several other people also.
Out of them,
meeting.
2 were Indian Americans other than Indira. There was Neera Tandon. She is the president of Center for American Progress. It's a leading Washington, D.C. think tank. And Deepak Bhargava from the Center for Community Change, who was also invited for consultations. That shows that Obama is not just picking people, he is going to the next level of organized way of hiring people. He's first bringing people who he should consult, how he should go about it, and then going to be picking people from the community.
True.
I think it's going to be extraordinary because, obviously Indians in America have excelled and they are completely entrenched. They have assimilated to them like you and me. America is our home. And we need to see how we build the country or rebuild the country now under Obama.
Exactly.
And this key position will certainly make a difference.
Yep. Well, so let's hope it makes a difference. And eventually, I think Obama, because the entire world is looking up to Obama in this now second term, which is going to last till 2016.
Yeah.
I think world is really watching to see that how Obama makes a difference by getting these right people. Eventually, his job is to get this country's economy on a track, resolve the problems such as a deficit, which is I think #1 problem, and unemployment, which also he has to work on it. So as we go on, more and more of these news stories will come out, getting qualified, I would say, South Asians or Indian Americans in the administration. That's a key thing. But eventually, Obama will have to get this job done.
Surely for as we go along, we'll cover as these things get unfolded. While Obama is looking to appoint and finalize the candidate he wants to work within his team, we have other decorated Indians who have been recognized and elevated to different positions all over the country.
Right.
Okay, not just Washington, D.C. We have Sanjay Sarma. He is an Indian American professor of mechanical engineering, IIT alumni, and he's been appointed the first director of digital learning of the prestigious MIT, Massachusetts Institute of Technology. He's the first Indian. And while making the announcement, Mr. Rife, who is the president of MIT, said, as the director of digital learning, Professor Sarma will serve as a convener and synthesizer. He will explore, collect, and build on the wisdom and experience of individuals and groups across our community and lead us in shaping a coherent vision.
Yep.
Imagine such kind of accolades being showered on Sanjay Sarma. I think Sanjay has a job cut for him.
Sure.
And help in this side, which is the digital side of it. On the other hand, you have, I think, Indian American who has been named as the Professor of the Year. Imagine. Now, this is Mr. Avtar Kao.
Right.
He's a 52-year-old guy, and he's from University of Southern Florida. He has been named as United States Professor of the Year by a very influential tank. And Kao, who has been awarded the Carnegie Foundation for the Advancement of Teaching and Counsel for Advancement and Support of Education, he says, look, the way I go about things, my students love it. It has really helped the students to see the implications of what this learning is about. he talks about students are essentially novices and they are not experts.
Exactly.
And he says
That
teachers
is the key point he's saying, is that they are not experts. They need to learn. And one of the reasons, Sunil, that he was named Professor of the Year, and he's among one of the 4 recipients. He's not the only one. And one of the main reasons he was named Professor of the Year, because the way he teaches his students, his techniques and styles are so interesting, and I think in a way very simple for students to understand, and at the same time they love to be learned from him or by him. And that's one of the reasons that he was named a Professor of the Year. And he says students are novices. They need to learn. They need to be educated in a way that they can understand easily. So his techniques and his styles have actually got a recognition as a Professor of the Year. And that's
I think that should also spread to other institutions, and probably other teachers can pick from there.
Yep.
Moving on to the story, second big story of the week is about the new announcement the Prime Minister in India made, new cabinet positions. And in this reshuffle, Dr. Ashwani Kumar, who has been regular in our stories all along, he is an eminent jurist and he has been appointed as the Cabinet Minister for Law and Justice.
Indian Law and Justice Minister.
Exactly. And he was here at the Indian Consulate and he met with the media. He's on a trip with his colleagues on a larger mission. But the focus he had is what is the focus today, every day being talked about in the parliament, even though there is a ruckus because of the opposition to it as well, the FDI in multi-brand.
FDI stands for Foreign Direct Investment.
Exactly.
But, really, Parliament House is equally divided on this issue. Opposition, they are making strong cases against it also, even though Congress and the party is saying that FDI in a multi-brand reality is a key to growth. India has achieved a growth in the past, but kind of slowed down in the last couple of years. And now what their plan is to achieve growth of 10% or 11% or 12% in the future. Congress is saying that FDI can play a very important role in it, but opposition is totally against it.
But isn't it healthy? I think in a country like India, which is essentially on the upper side of the developing countries, it's a good idea that every thought has an opposition also, so that it runs on merit of it. It doesn't just fly because you have the majority, you table something and you go through it. And they're very protective, which has helped actually if you look at it, but to an extent. But if you look at the last 20 years, how India has really progressed is when they opened the doors. And here is an FDI talking about opening essentially in a very specific sectors: insurance, banking, civil aviation, and multi-brand. I think there is less opposition in the insurance, banking, and civil aviation. It is more on the multi-brand retailing. Single brand is already allowed and they are already flushing. But I don't know it is a political agenda by the opposition or it is an agenda of the opposition to play their role diligently. But Ashwin says very, very clearly the Indian consumer will undoubtedly gain significantly from this step. I mean, he says clearly, look, we need almost $1 trillion just to develop our infrastructure.
And that is to match 8%, to go up to 8%
exactly,
of the growth, right? And then they need just $1 trillion for that.
Just for infrastructure.
Exactly.
So think about it, with this kind of needs, where is the money coming from? And he's here to say, he said, look, I wish to dispel misconception that India is slowing down. We are for reforms. He says, look, there is a human angle to it and we are as considerate about it. He's made it very clear that we had a very difficult decision to make. We thought about it, talked to the beneficiaries, talked to the people who can possibly get hurt. Everything has been weighed. After that, the government has made a decision to go forward. This was in the last year in the month of December.
Correct.
7th December they tabled it and it was knocked down because of the opposition.
Exactly.
But I think they must have either cobbled up the right support or gone through the opposition and understood what is going to hurt, what is not going to hurt. And keep in mind, the government is not telling you that every state has to do it. They're saying if it works for you in your state, do it. If it's not working for you, watch for it. Exactly. Let other states succeed. Like if you look at Punjab, the chief minister has said, look, we are not against it, but we'll watch it. And there are some states who have other political compulsion to say no to it.
Right.
So everybody has a right to what they want to do, but center thinks that where is this all this money coming from? And he's saying, look, the only way we can garner a huge investment to create a healthy domestic situation, which is conducive to investments and to improve, including domestic investments,
Right.
is open it up.
Correct.
And
Well, I think it can definitely work in at least 8 to 10 states in India. In the metro cities, it can definitely work. What opposition is saying, they also have a point that it will put all these small retailers. India's economy and because of the population is heavily built, and then the small retailers contribute so much to it because there are so many small
But the government
retailers.
is very clear that they have thought about it. Actually, the farmers will get better outlets. They will get better prices for their produce. There will be more organized industry. And keep in mind, the FDI is bringing investments into the country, and they cannot take money back. It's not a flight of money.
True.
It's not a flight of resources.
True.
It is essentially providing what is needed, and in return, obviously, the country gets jobs, they get investment, and the growth. I think this is phenomenal.
It's a worth trying. It's a worth trying. So at least they should give it a shot and see what happens.
Well, moving on to the next one, Sanjeev, since he himself has been an eminent jurist and he is heading the law ministry, he was here with his delegation and he went to Harvard. And they struck a memorandum of understanding with Harvard, which is called the Department of Humanitarian Policy and Conflict Research of Harvard University, with the Indian Law Institute. The objective is to work together closely, study each other's constitutions, study each other's needs and helps that we need to grow the country, and keeping in mind that India and America are coming so close to each other. They are already close.
Yeah.
Now is to the next flight.
Sure.
It's very important to understand each other more closely.
That's right.
In fact, Ashwini brought up the other issue which has been flaring for the last 1.5 years is about the Lokpal, because some of the people talked to him about, some of the people from the media, they asked about the Lokpal because it's an unfinished work since last August. And, he says, look, we are for Lokpal and it is not a one man's agenda. This has to be done within the framework of the Constitution. And he thinks that it is committed, the government is committed to do it. But I think he was a little bit of not sure in committing to it. He says, sooner or later. I think that's what he said. Sooner or later, it will happen. But I guess they're dragging feet on that.
True. And it's funny that you mentioned earlier that India needs U.S. support, especially for FDI. And it's a fact that Obama, after re-election, when he received a call from Prime Minister Manmohan Singh Desai, saying that Prime Minister Manmohan Singh saying that congratulations to Obama, and Obama said that India is a big part of USA's economic recovery.
Sure.
And I'm sure Manmohan Singh at this time must have said that USA is also a big part for India's growth to.
It's a hand in hand. You need to work together, And I think this is two most beautiful countries, largest population, the greatest democracies coming together. I don't think there is better ways to aggregate it.
Absolutely. Okay.
Very interesting. We already talked about, I think, a couple of weeks ago about Ami Bera. He is the son of the immigrants from India and living in California.
He's a doctor.
He's a doctor on top of that.
Successful
And he's
doctor.
obviously trained as a doctor, but here he got into public life and won. He's pretty much going to be in the House of Representatives. He's the congressman.
Now he's the third Indian elected
Sure.
in the history of U.S.
Yes.
Let's make it. He's the third Indian elected to the Congress.
Yes.
Okay.
And of course, there were many contenders, including our Upendra Chivkula,
Right.
but they came close. But this guy has done it. And the funniest part is, since he's trained as a doctor, he needs to be trained to act, operate, function as a congressperson. And guess what? Who's going to be his teacher?
His opponent. I've never heard that before. This is the first time that I came to know that a newly elected congressman will get a training from his opponent.
Yep.
I mean, that is something different. And even Dr. Amy Bera also said in his statement that he has not met his opponent, I think Lundgren, Charles Lundgren is his name, that he has not met since the election, and it will be the first time that he will be shaking his hand and at the same time getting hands-on training from his opponent, Mr. Lundgren, or Congressman Lundgren, as Dr. Amy Bera will start his term.
And it will be interesting now, an opponent training you to do what you are supposed to do. I guess this is a uniqueness, and they say Dr. Mivera will be part of the freshman course here.
That's right.
Interesting. Moving on to the next story, Sanjeev. Two Indians are among the Forbes top 15 education innovators.
Right. Quickly, that we want to mention that Sal Khan, who is actually the founder of Khan Academy, his real name is Salman Khan, but now he has kind of changed his name to avoid a controversy with film star Salman Khan. Sal Khan has been named in many lists, many publications as one of the most innovator and originator. So he is the one who invented Khan Academy, the revolutionary online educational platform, along with the CEO of Canada-based company, which actually makes a low-cost tablet, Akash, which is very popular in India, and the government has actually provided. His name is Sumit Singh Tuli. So they both have been named among Forbes top 15 education innovators, and I think that is definitely a great news, and I think community should take a pride and inspiration from these two individuals.
Actually, Anand Agarwal, who is the Massachusetts Institute, MIT, as we call it, Massachusetts Institute of Technology professor, has also been put in the list of these 15. Right. So two from US and one from Canada.
Exactly.
And you know, Sanjeev, this Akash tablet has created a revolution. It is the smallest. It is probably one of the most inexpensive. And India has made an agenda. I think they are planning to produce it in such a large scale that it will become a common man's tool.
Right. And with that, we come to an end of the first segment on Eye on South Asia.
Eye on South Asia is brought to you by Wells Fargo. Wells Fargo, together we'll go far.